Welcome to the On Stage podcast, where we interview musicians and members of the entertainment community. Well, everyone, this is funny, but we do have a gentleman with us today named Joe Booe, and he's from the group Rain of Fire. It's a progressive hard rock metal band whose members live in Sarasota, Florida, and Las Vegas, Nevada. As such, Rain of Fire is a recording project only utilizing file sharing as a means of song development from draft to final mix and master. They've released singles that they are completed, and one of them is called Voices, which I posted on my Facebook page, which has, might as well just call this guy the YouTube tribute band, because they sound just like YouTube, but Rain of Fire is a totally different band. And he's also not just a singer, but he's also the lead master, the guitarist, the keyboard.
The guitarist is Rob Chrisman.
Yeah. And drummer Pete Bartolome. Okay,
Bartolome.
Yeah, cool. So pleased to meet you, Joe. Pleased to meet you. Pleased to meet you.
It's our pleasure.
Is there a lag there? One second.
Yeah.
Testing. Okay, so there's a 2-second lag.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so I'll make sure that when I ask you a question, I'll give you 2 seconds silence.
Yeah, we got plenty of We're good. I hear you just fine, man.
Okay. You're a joker, too. Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Booe from the Jokers. Just kidding.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So thank you so much for setting this up with me, Joe. I really appreciate it. This is going to be a fun podcast. Like all my podcasts is fun, especially when they start laughing in the beginning. That makes it a little bit more easier.
Yeah.
So,
yes,
Joe, can you give us a little bit of, well, actually, I'm going to rephrase it differently. Can you go back to the beginning when you first started to think, okay, maybe music is the way I wanted to go?
When I was a kid, my cousin was a drummer, and he was playing in like late 60s, early 70s style of music bands in high school. I was 6, 7 years old. My parents had 4 of us, 4 boys. And so we'd get dumped off at my aunt and uncle's house all the time on the weekends, so my parents could get a break from having 4 kids. And my cousin would always be practicing. He was a drummer, so I'd stand right in the middle of the room while these guys were rehearsing, and they're playing Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin and Jimi Hendrix and all of the greats from the late 60s and early 70s. And I just said, man, this is what I want to do. And my cousin actually gave me my first microphone when I was 13. So I started singing in bands in high school, 14, 15, playing in clubs. And so Pete, the drummer, and I have known each other since we were little. And he's always played music, was a drummer, bass player, guitarist. He plays everything. So he does all of our mixing and mastering. Very talented musician. So at an early age, I knew this is what I wanted to do. Pete and I played in a band called Strychnine in Chicago. We were a really well-known band in Chicago for about 10 years, all through the 90s. Then I went out to California, played in a band called 7 Months. We had an album release that did really well in Europe, had movie music, and they continued. I ended up injuring my vocal cords, so they moved on with another singer. I took a break for a little while, came to Florida, and so Pete and I we resurrected Strychnine for a little while, and when that dissolved, the keyboardist passed away to cancer, and the guitarist left the country for health reasons, moved back to Greece. So Pete and I recruited Rob Chrisman, who I played with about 30 years ago in a band called Geneva. And Pete also had played with Jim Davidge, the bass player, in bands like Marquette and Skull Candy back in Chicago. Those guys were they're all living in Vegas now. I'm in Florida. So the only way that this could work was we had to file share. So what we do is the guitarist will come up with a piece. He'll send it to me, and then I'll write lyrics and melodies to it, record it. So it's a rough recording. We send it to the other guys, and everybody writes their individual parts. Pete does the mixing and mastering. We start compiling, and we go through multiple drafts. And since we can't rehearse, we don't perform live, it's an evolutionary process. So each of us will kind of, pick apart our parts, continue to evolve them, and over the course of a couple months, we complete songs.
So without this power and ability to file share, I guess if you were doing all this 10 or 15 years ago, there'd be no way you could even do this.
It would be far more time and cost prohibitive. We'd have to burn everything to CD, send it to the other guy, you know what I mean, and mail it because the files would be too big to try and send anywhere with, you know, the old computer systems. So, yeah, I mean, thank God for modern technology. It makes this all possible.
So when you do the file sharing, you doing things like OneDrive or WeTransfer, Google Drive? What mode do you use, which you think is
We
better
use
for you? Quicker?
we use Dropbox, and we
Drop.
go with the bigger file capabilities of Dropbox. And so, yeah, I mean, we've got tons of files in Dropbox. So we'll go through multiple generations of the songs. Each guy's is sending, you know, his stuff. So we'll clean it up every once in a while, but usually Dropbox is pretty loaded.
So when they have the song completed, do they just send you the complete song and then you listen to it, or do you here? What do you think of this? Oh no, it needs to, and they go boom boom, like play tennis with them, sort of.
Yeah, we do a lot of tennis playing. So we'll bounce it off each of us. You know, we'll put it up on Dropbox. Each of us download it and listen to it. We'll compare notes, go through a remixing and remastering. Pete dedicates an awful lot of time to mixing and mastering.
Wow.
So each of us kind of have our contributions. Most of our music, all the music starts with Rob. Rob is a really accomplished musician. He plays guitar, bass, synthesizers, keyboards, you name it, and very prolific writer. So the music starts with him, goes through the evolutionary process with me doing vocals. I do all the background vocals too. So I'll compile full vocal suites and send them to Pete. Pete's doing his drums. Jim does his bass. We compile it all. Jim also runs our website. I do all of our video content. So everything that's done for our music videos, I do. And then I run kind of all of our social media stuff too. So Facebook, ReverbNation, X, you name it, YouTube. I run the YouTube channel. So
that's amazing. That's a lot of work, especially in this day and age, the social media and the possibilities. I don't know if you are part of the band together, Vox and Sticks. Christina, do they do a whole band?
Love them.
Basically, just online. I don't think they've ever met. Except both of them.
So
her and Greg are married, but
Right.
Even during like a Zoom session, he wants to be in a separate room. So
exactly. Our guys on occasion, like even though they all live together in Vegas, Pete and Jim get together sometimes, but they've never been in the same room with Rob. So every once in a while, they'll try to do like Jam Kazam. And so they'll do a jam session online where, you know, it's kind of like this, where you can see each guy. But if there's more than three of them, it starts to bog down computers and then you've got lag. So with the three of them, it works. I really haven't been able to jump in with them yet. So unfortunately, like I said, I mean, we've never been in the same room together. We've never actually all worked on music live at the same time together.
Do you think that'll ever happen, that you all get together in one room?
Absolutely. We've been talking about it, and once we complete this album, we're doing a concept album, and it's based on a soldier who gets wounded in battle, and he's in and out of like degrees of consciousness. Not sure if he's losing his mind or losing his life. And each song is a past life and basically a past death that he experiences. So he's going through these progressions with each song. We're just about to release our sixth one. So we figure when the album is done, I'll probably go out to Vegas. We're going to try and do some shows and see if we can't do some additional live promotion with it.
Can you tell me, you're talking about other bands like Strychnine, Geneva, Marquette, Skull Candy. Do you think, and the Dog as well, which I think is a current project right now.
Right. Joe Booe and the Dog. That's a band I've got down in Key West.
Has the genre changed, or is it the same sort of genre for all those bands?
Joe Booe and the Dog is a little different. It's a little more eclectic. We do some electronica meets metal meets, you know, hard rock meets 70s funk and blues. So it's kind of an eclectic mix. Strychnine was kind of a straightforward 80s style rock band. And the stuff that I did with Rob in Geneva was kind of along the same lines. Rob's he's very much an Eddie Van Halen type of guy, and Richie Blackmore. He and I, a lot of where he and I mesh are the Richie Blackmore Dio kind of relationship, where we share a lot of interest in ancient melodies and kind of that approach to writing.
Yeah. So where did Rain of Fire come from? Like, where did you get the name?
Rob had sent me a piece. This had started out as kind of the hope to continue with some of the Strychnine stuff. So I'd gotten in touch with Rob to see if he might be interested in working on some of the songs that we'd written with Strychnine. Pete and I had pretty substantial library of songs that we'd written with Strychnine. So I sent some of them to Rob, and as Rob listened to them, he kind of wasn't sure exactly what to do with them. So he voiced that concern. He said, "Look, I'm not exactly sure how I should approach this. If I'm going to rewrite some of what your guitarist had done, if you want me just to replicate what he had done." I said, "Why don't you just send me one of your pieces?" So he sent me "Rain of Fire," and the song was when he wrote it with the guitar, it was written kind of around the scene of Matthew McConaughey in the movie Rain of Fire with the axe, where he jumps from that parapet and he's gonna try and axe the dragon, and the dragon gobbles him up. So with that in mind, I really kind of envisioned what he was trying to express with the guitar, and wrote the song around that idea, and really the dichotomy of dragons and war, and how the modern day dragon is really warfare. And so then, and he and I always wanted to do a concept album. So we built the idea, and I really kind of worked on it a lot, and involved the idea about a soldier in war who gets wounded. And then each of these songs in turn is a past life that he's experiencing and a past death. So Hangman, he's a he's a gunslinger back in the Old West. Desert Caravan, he's, in the desert out in the middle of the Middle East, in the desert on a caravan, dying of thirst, and coming to terms with his spirituality, his soul, as being the kind of, the eternal flame within him, and that death is, just another turning point, and, the soul is eternal. So that's where kind of the concept developed. But Rain of Fire was the original song. And so as we beat our brains and trying to come up with a name for the band, we thought, look, this name really kind of is befitting. Why don't we go with this and run with it?
How do you put a song together? What's your creative way of putting a song together?
Well, that song was actually written about 30 years ago. Rob wrote the entire guitar piece, and he wrote it as a different song 30 years ago. And it was one that he and I had done. To modernize it, I asked him if it was all right with him if I rewrote the melody and lyrics. So I did. And a lot of what we do, Rob and I are on the same page an awful lot. And Pete and Jim, like I said, Pete and I have been playing together forever. Rob and I have played together an awful lot. So we are on the same page in terms of messaging. So when he sends me a guitar piece, I'm trying to understand the story that he's trying to tell with the guitar. And then I try to write that story.
Yeah, and you do that with basically a lot of your songs, and also with the fact that most songs that I hear from other musicians say that it's an experience, like when they suffered an experience in their life, whether a tragedy or something that they think was a happy moment, they write a song about it. Would you say the same thing about that?
Yeah, we have done that. But because this is really a concept album, we're trying to step away from the personal connections to these songs. So rather than being like personal past experience, we're trying to tell almost like a novel instead of a novella or a short story. So we want to connect each of these songs so that they tell really kind of a big screen, big picture story in its entirety. One of the albums that we've really tried to emulate is Operation Mindcrime by Queensryche. And the story is so deep and rich and detailed. And so we're trying to do the same thing. So in its album, when we complete it and we put it out in album form, there will be little vignettes and little pieces of music in between the songs with vocal pieces that will connect the storylines and kind of explain in depth a little bit more about what the concept is.
Who's the main songwriter?
It's always, everything we're doing is kind of, each person writing parts. So it's collaborative. I write the lyrics and melodies. But it all starts with the guitar pieces that Rob sends to me. He'll send something that's played to a drum machine, and he's kind of already got the orchestration out. And if we need to, we may double up the ending. We may lengthen something, shorten something. But a lot of times his orchestration works. So we follow what he's got, and then I write lyrics and melodies around it, background vocals. And then Pete will write his entire drum pieces to it, and Jim will do the same thing with the bass. So it's collaborative, but in a unique way. We're not in the same room and bouncing ideas off of each other. We're each contributing their ideas, and then if somebody has maybe an opinion about something or an idea about something, we may do a redirect. But for the most part, we're letting each guy kind of contribute his part entirely on his own.
What do you think of love songs? Like when somebody writes a song about a love or past relationship, or they write a song for their current relationship, like their wife or their girlfriend, and it's a beautiful song, and it's like the song Amanda, or it's a song by Elvis Costello called Veronica, which he wrote about his grandma.
Sure. Right.
Um, when the relationships, and I've asked many musicians too, when the relationships are over, does it make sense to sing that song when the song was written for your girlfriend Sarah, which you broke off with 10 years ago?
I think it is, because you're not singing about, for eternity. You're singing about a particular moment, and in a moment in your life, that person was everything to you. So there's no reason not to celebrate that. And I think an awful lot of people find connections to that too. So you're not just singing or playing the song for yourself. You're playing for an audience. And for a lot of people who find a connection to that song, while it may have been a personal message for you, it's also a personal message for them. So yeah, I think once you've written and given the universe your song, it's really kind of it belongs to everybody. It's no longer just yours, unless you're going to keep it yourself and never play for anybody, in
That's
which
true.
case, what a waste.
You've heard of Dan Reynolds of Imagine Dragons, right?
Oh yeah, he's an incredible writer.
Incredible band, I know, and incredible songwriter and singer too. So his sister-in-law died, so he wrote a song called Wrecked, which is
Yeah.
how he's feeling with the death of his sister-in-law. Now, does it make sense for us to sing that song when it has nothing to do with us?
Yeah, I think for most fans, I can remember years and years ago, a girl that I was dating talked about how this was her song. She would take ownership of a song. Oh, this is my jam. This is my jam. I think that a lot of fans do that. They really take and internalize the music that we create. And I think it would be an injustice for any of us as an artist to create something that other people connect to and feel like we still own it individually. It's like I said, I mean, when you put it out there, you give it to the world. And I think you have to be willing to share that ownership. You have to be willing to give it up a little bit and let other people experience and enjoy that piece of art and their own personal journey with it.
I would make the song generic, or I would just change the lyrics up a bit. Like,
Yeah,
Candle in the Wind, when Princess Diana died, he made a Candle in the Wind, but it was about Diana. You can do
yeah,
that with your song.
sure, absolutely. And I think that's the beauty of music is that at any point, you see artists do this every once in a while. They'll resurrect a song that they had done. Like I remember a couple of Whitesnake songs had been done on previous albums that they brought back on the WS album, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that, especially if you're gonna modify it, improve it, or alter it in some way that it kind of changes the messaging, makes it less personal. But at the same time, once it's out there, you know, fans are going to do what they want to do with it, and they're gonna say, no, 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 man, this is mine. This is mine. I want to keep it exactly the way it is.
So when I mentioned the group Rush, what kind of genre do you think they sing? And what kind of songs? Do you think they're pretty rocky themselves?
Yeah, I mean, I find them to be deeply progressive, and so bands like Rush and Yes, Dream Theater, Queensryche, those are bands that we've always, all four of us, have drawn inspiration from. I love Rush. I think Rush is an incredible band and timeless. And I thought it was awesome when they saw kind of a resurgence with the young nerds. This is a band that had been around, through the 70s, through the 80s, and then, in the early 2000s, you've got these young computer guys, these Dungeon and Dragon guys who are really digging Rush. Music's timeless, man. And I love the fact that it doesn't matter when, where, or who or how. Everybody and anybody can connect to your music. I think Rush is an incredible band, especially considering three guys. You got a bass player who's playing Taurus pedals. He's singing. You got a guitarist playing keyboards at the same time. A drummer who's playing this monster kit that entirely encircles him. He's, surrounded 360 degrees by drums and stuff. Those guys were incredible.
What about the song Tears from Rush? That's sung by Geddy Lee. That's one of
Right,
their
right.
songs. Tears. It's a good song.
Yeah, yeah, awesome song, man.
Now, when you think of Black Sabbath, you're thinking Ozzy Osbourne, right?
Being an older guy, I think of Ozzy, but I also think of Dio. And there's a guy who's been singing for them for a long, long time named Tony Martin. And I think Tony Martin is a monster vocalist. He's got incredible range. And honestly, I think I enjoyed the Tony Martin years of Black Sabbath most, even though I grew up on Black Sabbath, and that was one of the bands that inspired me to be a singer.
So you're
So
a big fan
I love seeing the evolution of bands. And, you know, even though you associate a specific singer with each band, I think, you know, it may just be for that period. Just like, you know, the ongoing debate has always been about Van Halen. Is it Van Halen or Van Hagar? And half the population thought, you know, David Lee was the only singer of Van Halen, and the other half think, well, no, Sammy Hagar was a damn good singer, and I thought it was better with him.
What do you think of Tony Iommi?
Love Tony Iommi's he may be if he's not my favorite, he's in my top 5 of guitar players. He's the most incredibly prolific writer, and the dark, deep tone of that SG. I love Tony, man. He's a killer.
You want to hear a really nice song by Ozzy Osbourne? It's called Dreamer.
Yeah.
Great song.
Awesome song.
Totally
awesome.
Different from Black Sabbath, huh?
Absolutely. Well, you know, the entire album, was it called? Technical Ecstasy. Very, very different stuff by Black Sabbath. And I love that album. It's a different album. Bill Ward sang one of the songs on it. So, you know, I love when bands are willing to do that too. Step out of their comfort zone, try something different, try something unique. You know, even Judas Priest, when they did the Turbo album, they kind of moved into like a pop direction, and it was so counter to everything else that they'd ever done. And then they reverted back to Painkiller, and you know, so I love when bands are unafraid of stepping out of their comfort zone and trying something different.
Yeah, I was listening to songs. Besides Voices, I was listening to The Road to Madness, and
Yes.
I believe another song was the Hangman video.
Yes.
How did you put those together? How did you think of that concept?
Well, like I said, because it's a concept album, I really wanted to think of, all right, how can we put this soldier who's kind of losing his mind, he's on the verge of death, to different places, different times. And so then the thought of it has to be past lives really kind of came to my mind. And if he's experiencing past lives, I can put him anywhere in the timeline of human history. And Hangman was a song that Rob and I had written 30 years ago. And again, that was another one that we decided to bring back because we love the music. So I totally rewrote the melodies and lyrics to it. And so the video was something that I wanted to go into a direction kind of like almost like the Marvel comics and the Marvel comic movies, where it was cartoonized. So the colorization of the video is very different and kind of flashes into like what looks like, you know, zooming in, zooming out, pages turning. So it looks more like a comic book. And so we're trying to delve into, you know, different experiences with video, especially because it's easier to do that than it is musically, at least for what we're doing. You know, we're trying to focus on this being a hard rock, progressive hard rock and metal band. So the next song we're working on, I think the video is going to blow people's minds. And I think the song is going to blow people's minds. And
Wow.
it's going to be coming out in the next couple of weeks. It's called Call of Vikings. And when you hear this song, you're going to want to pick up a battle axe and start hacking away. You know, you're going to want to go to the so.
Yeah, everyone has like a song playing when they enter a room. Mine is the Unsolved Mysteries theme. What's yours?
Mine is the theme song from Conan the Barbarian. So Conan, you know, like when he's going into the where the orgy is, and the two other big guys come walking in, and he's got his sword. He's like, you know, just slowly dancing around with the sword. That's my music. That's the, you know, the death march from Conan the Barbarian.
It'll be like it's like I walk through a room and I'm wearing the you know, the rain jacket. Well, you've seen Unsolved Mysteries, you know, Robert Stack.
Oh yeah. Yep.
I'd say, Joe Booe. Who is Joe Booe? And
I love it.
The Joe Booe episode.
Awesome.
Yeah. Do you create music for yourself or for your fans?
It is very personal. So if nobody ever listened to what we're doing, if nobody ever listened to a song I ever wrote, I'd be okay with it because I love it. In fact, I listen to our stuff a lot.
Mm.
I'm a firefighter in Sarasota, but I've got a personal training business, so I work out every day, and my workouts are typically listening to my own music. I listen to a lot of other stuff too because I'm inspired by everybody else, but mine is always in the mix, so I don't ever get tired of it. So if nobody listened to it, I'd be okay with it. So it's not really fan driven because I think too often that's contrived. If you try to write music for other people, it's kind of thin, and they can tell. I think people can tell there's no genuine personal connection to it. It's got to come from your heart and your soul. And so that's what, that's what Pete and I have always done through all the years we've played together. That's what Rob and I have done together all the years we played together. So all of us kind of feel the same way. If we don't absolutely love the song, we wouldn't even want to release it, even if everybody else thought it was awesome.
What goes through your head, Joe, when you enter fire, that this is your last day?
What's funny is, as a firefighter, you actually get excited to go into a fire. So none of us ever even think of it that way. Like, we got a fire, we're going, man, let's go. So we get excited about running into a fire, because you want to save property, you want to save lives if you can. And the idea of fighting something that you've been training for, it's almost like soldiers going to battle. You've trained for it, and you know your job, and you trust all your buddies. There's a strong camaraderie with the fire department, similar to a band. I mean, when you're on stage, when you're playing with your bandmates, you trust them. You know they're going to be on time. They're going to hit their notes right. They're going to go through their transitions and progressions right. And you have to do the same thing yourself because everybody's counting on everybody else. So I think that's part of the reason why I really enjoy the fire service too, is because it's a lot like a band. It's a lot like a team sport. All this stuff kind of, you find similar paths in your life and you walk them.
So that movie Backdraft with Kurt Russell, what did you think of that? Do you have like a reaction to that movie? Like, that's not real. That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen.
It's not even close to real. That's all Hollywood fire stuff. Yeah, it's funny too because all of us firemen will pick apart every TV show or movie that's ever been done on fire. Because they're dramatizing it, and it's nothing like that. Fire, going into a fire, it's pitch black. You can't see a thing. Most of the time, you can't even see the fire. You feel a lot of heat. There's a lot of smoke. There's debris everywhere because usually the building is kind of falling in on itself, and there's stuff falling in all over the place. It's dirty. It's hot. It's wet, but it's a lot of fun.
What were your thoughts on the firefighters that went in to save during the 9/11?
Oh, those guys are ultimate heroes because most of them had to realize that there's a very, very strong chance that they're not going to make it. But when you do this for a living, you're willing to sacrifice your life for the sake of others.
So you've seen some really pretty
grotesque. I've seen some stuff. I've seen some grotesque stuff.
How does that affect your playing or your interest in, what, guys, I just saw the worst today. I don't feel like playing. Or you're like, okay, let's play. I know I've seen the worst today, but that's not going to stop me from being Conan.
Right. I've been fortunate in that I'm able to leave it at the door. So when I leave, it doesn't come home with me. I don't suffer from any form of PTSD from it. If anything, I'm inspired by the heroic people that I work with.
So that's great. Yeah, I can imagine. If you could have a musician tag along with you on tour for 1 month, who would you choose?
Ooh. I would probably want the now deceased Ronnie James Dio.
Really?
Yeah. There are a handful of guys that I think are incredibly inspiring, and Ronnie James was one of them. He's just, he's a small guy, but larger than life. He utterly commanded a stage, powerful voice for a little guy. I mean, he just, I don't know, an awesome writer. He's one of those guys that I would love to have as a vocal coach for a little while. I remember hearing about Dave Draymond asking him, for the singer from Disturbed, asked him, Ronnie, what do you do to keep your voice fresh? I mean, what do you do about taking care of your voice? And he said, I drink tea and I never eat after 7. And he went on and on a couple things. It's like, man, I'm just messing with you. I don't do anything. I just go out there and sing. If you can't do that, you're a pussy. Just go out there and sing, man. So you got to love that.
Yeah, you got to have a sense of humor like you too.
Absolutely. And Ronnie James is just a badass. To me, he's the godfather of hard rock and heavy metal.
It can be either like we have Joe Booe as our main lead singer. Oh, you talking about the firefighter? Oh, man.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Joe. Hi, I'm Joe Boo. Or would you be like,
Right.
hi, it's Joe Boo. How are you? Boom, you know. What do you enjoy most about being a musician?
It- as far as I'm concerned, it is the closest you can ever come to sharing your soul with the world.
Yeah.
Um, you pour your heart and soul and mind and everything that is your being into music and songwriting. So if anybody ever wants to get a window into who you are or were as a person, to me, that's the greatest legacy you can leave. It's like having children. I don't have any children. Um, my girlfriend, we've been together for 12 years. She's got a 30-year-old daughter, but I don't have kids myself. So without having that legacy, this has become my legacy.
Yeah. Do you think having kids, like, I mean, I'm not sure if Liv Tyler spends all her time as a roadie with her father while they're playing in Aerosmith.
Right.
Whether it be like, Liv, can you please stay home this time? You're bothering me. You're going around
Right.
all the guys saying, look, Steve is my father. You know,
Right.
I'd be like, you guys are staying home. We're going to do the thing tonight by yourselves.
Right. Right.
You know. So, what skills are most useful in the music industry?
For today's music industry, I think you have to be really multidimensional. You have to have a lot of skill sets. You have to be familiar with computers. You have to be social media savvy. You're doing most of your own promotion. You're doing probably your own recording these days, because now you don't have to spend 30 40 thousand dollars going into the studio. You can do everything at home. And so I think you have to, while you're not spending a whole lot of money and you're not hoping to catch lightning in a bottle by being picked up by a label, now
Mhm.
you just have to do all the legwork yourself. And unfortunately, like Spotify, Pandora, all of them, the percentage that they pay for streaming is nothing. So you're not even going to make money off of music. You can't even really make money off of CD sales because not a whole lot of people have CDs anymore. They'd rather just stream the
Yeah.
music. It's got to be
Mhm.
merchandising. It's got to be in performance. So you got to play live. You got to do tours. You got to sell a lot of T-shirts. You got to sell posters. You got to sell whatever you can sell, coffee mugs, whatever. So you really have to be kind of a marketing guru. You got to be a tech guru because you're going to probably spend a lot of time on your computer creating websites, working on all this social media platforms, and you have to be friendly. I'll tell you, the biggest, probably the biggest tool that we've used has been social media and getting our message out. So I spent a lot of time on Facebook, especially ReverbNation, some on X, but mostly on Facebook, reaching out to other bands. So what we found is the biggest fan base that we have are other bands because we're
Mm.
fans of them too. So most of us, especially in the indie field, we're all trying to raise the tide for all boats. So we're trying to get all of us kind of a little bit bigger audience, a little bit more attention. So that's what I'd say. You got to be familiar with everything from social media, personal marketing, merchandising, recording, doing your own recording stuff. So you got to know everything.
Do you think you would have been a lot more successful? And I'm not saying that you're not now, but you're more successful in the 80s and 90s when people bought like um, 45s of singles and you make a lot of money through that?
I think so. Like I said, it was almost like catching lightning in a bottle. And we were probably closer to the age that would have been more marketable then because we were in our 20s and 30s. Now we're in our 50s. And the problem, though, was that it was next to impossible to get attention. You played clubs like crazy. You'd play all over the place. Uh, if you saved enough money, you'd have to spend a fortune going into the studio to record an album. And then you had to sell a lot of them out of your trunk, and when you're setting up a table at each show and get enough attention that a label might say, hey, look, these guys have sold 10,000 albums on their own, they've sold
Wow.
10,000 CDs, maybe we can do something with them. So that was the toughest part about it, was just differentiating yourself then from now. Back then you had to hope that you could get an industry guy to come out and see you play, and now it's all right, who's monitoring you on social media or who happened to catch you on YouTube and you go viral. So it's different, totally different animal. But I think we probably would have had more success then than we would have now.
That's interesting you say that. What made you think Taylor Swift became so successful? And she's a crazy an amazing entrepreneur, and she
Exactly.
actually she actually pulled a fast one. See, I think a lot of her music was actually purchased by this. Get the name of the company, but what she did is she went and re-recorded her first two albums. It's sort of like screw that, company, whatever. And she's
Yeah. Right.
such one of the most successful recording artists ever. What do you think was her secret? And do you have an idea about that?
I think she tapped into a nerve that is maybe the most successful means of getting yourself huge, and that's the youth market. She tapped into young girls who in their bedrooms wanted to be Taylor Swift, or they could relate to her songs because they've been heartbroken by some boy at school. She tapped into stories that kids could relate to, and she grabbed young girls and embraced them, and she marketed the shit out of it. She knew exactly what she was doing, and she did it wisely. And anybody who was working with her must have seen that and said, this is the market. So, the stuff that we do has a pretty small market, hard rock, heavy metal, progressive rock. There's not a whole lot of people listening to that. So for us, we're having to dial into internet radio, because the only
Mhm.
place you're going to find hard rock, heavy metal, and progressive rock is on internet radio, or even European radio. But a lot of it's small stuff. She tapped into the huge market of young girls, and that's smart because they're the ones who are going to stream the most music. They're the ones who are going to spend all their free time listening to music. So she was smart with it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And she started as a country artist, and now look at her. She's
Yeah.
doing all these tours. There's a tour now this year. She's doing all this and she's making a ton of money doing that. And I hope everyone will follow her
Yeah.
in that way, because many of these indie artists and others are kind of struggling. They're
Yeah.
like starving artists, you might say. So they put out their
Yeah.
music, but there's always a market somewhere out there for someone just suddenly like. If I got a call, say we'd like you to sing for us, I'd be like, sure, because I haven't had that before. I just love
Yeah.
singing, and but for you, how do you deal with your like during work as a firefighter? How do you deal with your mental health? Because you
Well,
have to take care of
like I
yourself
said,
too.
I'm fortunate because I don't end up bringing any of it home with me. And I think having a hobby like this, because, while this is, it doesn't pay the bills, it's still really got to kind of be considered a hobby. I've been doing it for 40 years as a second job because I've always had a full-time job, but it's a labor of love. So this is an outlet, just like, exercise is also an outlet for me. So between exercise and working on music, I don't know how you can be stressed when you're working on music. You really can't. I mean, it is the ultimate stress reliever because you're able to, it's almost like going to see a shrink. You tell the story that's been plaguing you, and you tell the whole world. Well, you share that with the whole world. It's no longer on your heart, man. It's
That's
gone.
true. Was there ever a time that you just wanted to give up?
Like I said, when I was in California, I damaged my vocal cords, and that was devastating. I worked with two vocal coaches out there for a while, and I didn't think I'd get my voice back. And if there's ever been a period in my life where I might have gone through a little bit of a depression, that did it, because for a long time that defined me. I was a singer since I was a teenager, and most people, that's how they knew me. I had long hair. Like now with the fire department, I got to keep my hair short, but I used to have long hair, and I defined myself as a singer. When most people would meet me, they're like, "Hi, I'm Joe Booe. I sing for Strychnine, or I sing for this band." Or, so that was it was hard to let that go. So I'm glad to be back in it and feeling 100%. And I'm glad to be working with the guys I'm working with. I love this band. I love what we're doing. So that to me is the ultimate stress reliever.
Oh yeah, definitely. We all have something that we want to use as a stress reliever. For me, it's singing, it's the podcast, it's
Right.
going for walks, it's meeting with friends, seeing
Right.
them. It's perfect. Um,
Absolutely.
if you could change one thing in the music industry, what do you think it would be?
I think if there were any way that it were possible to make it a little easier to make even just a little bit more money at this stuff, I think that's the biggest struggle that all of us face. But when I hear, and I've heard a lot of different numbers thrown out, but when you hear like 40,000, 60,000, 100,000 songs uploaded to Spotify a day, you
Yeah.
realize that there's a massive body of music out there that you're trying to differentiate yourself amongst, which is really hard. So I think the only thing that really could change the music industry to that end would be if artists themselves were to somehow, almost like like SAG, where you had the Screen Actors Guild. If all of us got together and said, look, we're unionizing and we're going to establish our own streaming service, and the profits are going to stay with us, and we opened up that opportunity to every artist. And it became kind of like like the Green Bay Packers are owned by the city of Green Bay, by all the residents. Everybody has a piece of that, just a little piece of Green Bay Packers. If we all owned the streaming service that we utilize and we were getting kickbacks from it, that would be outstanding.
Yeah, that's wow. I like your answers, man.
Thanks.
Joe Boo answers. That's what I'm gonna get. The next time I have musicians, or I'm gonna say,
Yes.
okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have changed
That's
your podcast.
right.
It's Joe Boo podcast.
Joe Boo answers.
And every answer has to be given the way Joe Boo does it.
That's it. We're gonna create a website for it.
Yeah.
Like Simon says.
Yeah. So how do you think social media has changed the music industry?
It's done, well, two things. It's allowed for accessibility for those of us artists that might not be able to reach a broader audience. And I take a look at, for instance, I'll take a look at my Spotify numbers, Spotify for artists, and I see that I'm listened to in Singapore. I'm listened to in Venezuela. We're listened to all across the world. So social media and the internet has given us access to the world, which is incredible. Because it used to be, it was only the people in my backyard. If I didn't play in Michigan, people in Michigan never heard of who Strychnine was. And so the same holds true with Rain of Fire. If it weren't for the fact that I can use social media, I can talk to people in other countries. Two of the Rain of Fire songs are in a playlist on Spotify that was created in Chile. And the guy who created it reached out to me and said, hey, would you be interested in being in this playlist that I'm creating? I said, absolutely. So now he and a bunch of other musicians from Chile and us and some other Americans and some Europeans are all in this playlist of the world, it's called, in Spanish. And so that's incredible. Social media has given us that. It's given us a global stage. The only problem is it's given that global stage to everybody. So like I said, if it's 100,000 songs being uploaded to Spotify a day, it's hard to, you're lost in the crowd. But you do what you can, and you reach some people. And instead of reaching one room full of people in Sarasota, Florida, I can reach, maybe that same number of people. They're just one here, one there, one in Venezuela, one in Chile, one in, Brazil. So we do what we can.
Yeah. I still think Voices is one of your best songs, I'll tell you.
Thank you. Being honest. I love that song. And that was part of the reason why I really asked Rob, hey, can we bring Voices in? He threw it out to me. He said, what do you think about Voices? I said, I would love for us to do that song. At the time, it was called Cries in the Wind. And I said, I'd love for us to, redo that song. If you don't mind, I'd like to modernize the melody a little bit. And it's actually not that far from what Rob had before. And I changed the lyrics so that it kind of fits more the context of our concept. But I love the song. And Rob wrote the guitar piece, note for note. Everything he's playing in that song, he wrote when he was about 18 or 19 years old. So it gives you some insight as to what an incredible prodigy this guy was so many years ago. And he's still
great song. That's why I chose it to be part of the on my Facebook page. I think it was one of the best songs. I'm like, you got to listen to this, everyone. You promote this guy, Joe Boo. You listen to this.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that, man. I have a deep love for that song, maybe more than any of the other songs that we have in our repertoire. It always, to me, was such a beautiful piece. And it was one of the songs I heard before I met Rob. The guy who introduced me to him was his keyboardist. I was singing in a different band and they were looking for a new singer. So this guy came to me and said, hey, look, man, I play keyboards for a band called Geneva. And I'd really like for you to come and sit in with us because we're looking for a new singer. So he played that song and another song that Rob had written that they had recorded, back then it was like on 4-track recorders. And I said, holy shit, man, this guy's incredible. I got to sing for these guys. So that really is part of what drew me to working with Rob, because he's such a heart. When you listen to, it's like the guitar is crying. It's, it's so much emotion in that song and in that guitar piece. So I love that song. I'm glad that you like it.
I do. What do you think of David Bowie's Heroes? The very first 5 minutes of this, like it's just like electric, just beautiful song.
Absolutely. Yeah. Incredible.
What do you think of that one?
I love it. I think it's a great song.
So, what's your thoughts on cover songs? Like, if you and the gang decided, let's do a cover, would that be
You
a
know,
difficult one to do?
it might be, you know, and we have talked about that. We've talked about, hey, what about the possibility of finding a good cover that kind of fits us? And
Hmm.
you know, so many bands nowadays, if you're an indie band, one of the easiest ways for you to rise to notoriety is to cover someone else's song. Like
Hmm.
Bad Wolves did a cover of the Cranberry song "Zombies," and I mean that launched them. So and I think a lot more bands are recognizing that they're resurrecting what were considered standards, you know, old beautiful standards. And Heroes would be a great one for us to try. And we've bounced a couple of other ideas off of each other. Even a Man in Black song. We thought about doing you know, an old what's his name, uh, the uh, the Man in Black. What's his real name?
Will Smith?
No, no,
Yeah,
the old country
oh,
artist.
Johnny Cash?
Johnny Cash. We talked about doing a Johnny Cash song. I don't know why his name was eluding me, but yeah, Rob has an
You're
old
getting
Johnny Cash,
old.
really dark and somber and very sad song, you know. And we talked about possibly redoing that and doing it with just a really meaty metal, like a gritty but slow, gritty metal feel and sound to it. So we're probably going to end up tapping into that at some point.
Now that we're on the, you know, kind of writing the tales of Johnny Cash here, I don't know if you're familiar. You probably know about that Billie Eilish song, "What Was I Made For," from the Barbie movie. Great
Oh yeah,
song.
yeah.
And her brother Phineas wrote it. And the song, if you don't know what was I made for was about, he wrote it for Billie herself, his
Oh,
sister
okay.
Billie. The song is about her because I
Yeah,
saw a documentary on that song.
yeah.
And then I heard that you can take the voice of several artists, put them through an AI, and you can make them sing anything. So I heard, I don't know if you're familiar with Aqua. They have that song Barbie Girl. Well,
Yeah, I haven't heard it.
they put Johnny Cash's voice through that song, and now he's singing Barbie Girl.
Oh my God.
To the point now when you got the actual girl who sang Barbie Girl's Aqua and sings it, "You can brush my hair, you can dress me everywhere," and Johnny Cash sings that part. I'm
Oh,
appalled by it.
that is
You can
appalling.
brush my hair and you can dress me everywhere.
Oh
You know, I'm like,
God.
oh,
I don't
but
know if I
yeah,
could. I couldn't stop laughing if I heard that.
I know. And there's a capability of doing that with every artist by just making
Right.
Britney Spears sing anything, you know?
That's ridiculous. That takes away all of the artistic value for any.
Exactly. Talent. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't agree. I don't agree with you using it to that end. I hope that AI doesn't become what it is. Just this destruction of creative, artistic, you know, creativity.
Well, you familiar with Now and Then? It's a new Beatles song, just came out. And I saw the
No.
documentary how they actually wrote that song. So back when the Beatles were still around,
Mhm.
and George was still around because he passed away in 2001, but around 1995, they found an old song they were working on with John's vocals. So Paul decided, "Hey Ringo, let's see what we can do about this song."
Mhm.
So they took Now and Then. They took John's voice and they used AI to clean it up. And now it's a beautiful song, and it's considered to be the very last Beatles song. It's an actual Beatles song, and they just
Wow.
released it. So do you think AI can be used for good, not just for bad?
I'm sure it can. I don't know that those are the kinds of things that musicians should mess with. Um, and I don't want to take away from the message maybe that they were trying to extend, and they wanted it to be maybe a tribute to him and to John, and maybe they wanted that to be like, look, this is our goodbye, this is our swan song to John, the last Beatles song. So more power to them. But my concern is that once you start messing with that, it's like opening Pandora's box. I don't want to. I don't want us to move in that direction musically. If that were a one-off, if that's the rare occasional thing, then so be it. But I certainly hope that we don't start to make that the norm.
So you wouldn't want David Bowie to perform voices?
No, no. Unless there were just going to be a room full of us and we're doing it kind of just tongue in cheek and wanted to see what it would be like. I think that's the kind of thing that maybe you do for entertainment value for a small group of people, but I don't think that should be sold to the masses. Especially when you consider, look at all, like we were just talking about, all of the artists who are dying to get any kind of traction. Anybody who's like working hard at music, if they're also competing with AI and they're competing with that kind of stuff, they're never going to get heard. And that's unfortunate, especially because AI can do it almost to perfection. One of the things that I like is the slight flawedness of, like, remember when we used to listen to records, you'd hear the needle on the record. There might be a little bit of scratch, be some, just some dirt to it. And that was part of the experience. When we moved to CDs and everything was crystal clear, I almost felt like a little bit of music died. And of course, I love the clarity of digital, but each time we take a step into that technology direction, we lose some of the humanity and the artistic side of it. That's what I love about live performance. That's what I loved about, tape recording, when you record it to tape in the studio versus recording digitally. And when people listen to records versus listening to CDs, there was a warmth to it. And even now, when I listen to occasionally when, somebody's got a record player and we listen to records, you can hear the passion, the warmth, the humanity in it. I'd hate to lose that.
Is there any type of music you don't like?
I'm not a rap fan. Never have
Me
been.
neither.
Just not my thing. And I like everything else. You name it, I like it. But that's the one thing. That's where I draw a line. I can't do it. You're not a rap.
80s music, like Duran Duran?
Oh,
No, not a rap.
I love the 80s. All my life I listened to the, because that was my generation. I'm 58. So my generation was the 80s. So I loved everything from the 80s. Some of it less than others, I've never been a big pop fan. Pop music is all right. But to me, it's too formulaic. It's, take an algorithm, figure out the right notes that everybody likes and just program it. So that to me is almost like AI. Too much of pop music is that algorithm, the formulaic approach to music. So I like the stuff that maybe a little bit divergent. Maybe it's not exactly perfect and not exactly what the mainstream likes, because inside of it, you find some real humanity.
Do you think an artist should be writing about something that happened tragic in the past? Like, for instance, familiar with Gordon Lightfoot? He's one of our Canadian singers.
Oh yeah,
but
yeah.
He wrote a song called "Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald."
Love the song. Yeah. I
think, would there be some like a link between ethics and music? Do you think you would want to write a song about a tragic thing that happened on the day of the job? You think that would be appropriate?
Sure. And I think, again, for so much in music, it starts out as a personal experience, and then you're giving that personal experience to the world. Just like we document everything. Human history is everything is put down to pen and paper, to print, and now to digital format. So without telling those stories, even before we had the written word, everything was passed down generation to generation by spoken word or by song. I think that's a big part of how we carry on the human experience and human history. So telling even sad stories, as much as they're not enjoyable, I think they're necessary because they teach us lessons. They help prepare us for the future, prepare us for the present. So a lot of times I think it's important that we revisit the past, even the sad past. And I think through music, you can experience the emotion. It may bring you to tears, but that may be a good thing.
I don't know. I wouldn't want to hear a song by a group where they say it's called JFK Assassination, a new song. I'd be like, dude, JFK was in the back of the car traveling down to Doodili Plaza. And then there were 3 gunshots. You wouldn't want to hear that.
No. Yeah.
That's what I mean.
I do think you have to draw a line somewhere. I think you have to have something associated with telling that sad story.
Yeah. What's the saddest song you've ever heard?
Oh boy. I don't know. know. Some Elton John songs come to mind.
Hold Me Closer.
Yeah.
Yeah, terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible, Brittany. Why did you team up with him? There were some collaborations that should not exist.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And everyone likes that one Christmas song, Little Drummer Boy with Bing Crosby and
Yeah.
David Bowie. Everyone likes that one, but I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't.
Elvis Presley in the Ghetto.
Oh man. Wow. So what advice would you give someone who has just started a career? Like, Joe, we really love Ring of Fire, and I want to be like in a band like you, and I want to be like you. And I may not want to fight fires, but I do want to do something else with my life. But I want to be in a band like you. What would
I
you
just want
tell
to be the
them?
long-haired Joe Boo. I don't want to be the short-haired Joe Boo. I want to be the long-haired Joe Boo. I would probably tell everybody the same thing that I once heard David Grohl tell people. He said, look, if you want to be in a band, because he was talking about like shows like American Idol and the Voice, and how they were kind of ruining music. And he said, look, get in a band with your buddies and jam in the garage and suck. Just be absolutely terrible, but keep
Wow.
practicing and keep playing and keep having fun. And over time, you're going to get better. And it's going to be organic and it's going to be real. And it's going to be an expression of your angst and your heartfelt emotions. And just keep doing it. And it's like anything in life. The more you do it, the better you get. And I think if somebody wants to be a musician, by all means, they should be a musician. If you want to be a singer, you want to be a songwriter, you want to play an instrument, do it and accept the fact that in the beginning, you're just going to suck. And it's going to take a lot of hard work. But if you really love it, like most of us who still do it, love it, then you got to do the work. And in the process, it's kind of like Mark Twain said, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. So I've never worked a day in my life at music because it's been a joy and a passion. And if I had a million other things to do, it's probably what I would choose first.
So I take it that your girlfriend and her daughter, they encourage you to do music. What do they like? Do they encourage you more in music or encourage you? Yeah, you should go out there and fight fires. You might die today. Like, what's their reaction?
Well, her daughter's 30. She lives on the other coast of Florida, so I don't really see her much. Tracy would rather that I was not a firefighter because the hours suck. You work 24 hours and you're off 48. And the band I was in California, she absolutely loved that album. In fact, when we first met, she listened to it all the time, knew all the words. Strychnine stuff she wasn't as crazy about, but she does like Rain of Fire. She encourages it because she's hoping I'm going to get rich at it. But obviously that for none of us that's ever going to happen. But
No.
she does. She is supportive, and she does recognize that it's a passion of mine. So she's very supportive of it.
Yeah, you tend to be.
Is your significant other also supportive?
She's a flautist, so she plays the flute. But I had a girlfriend once, 20 years ago, and she caught me singing, and she said, "Don't give up your day job." And I didn't sing for the next 10 years until I met her.
Right.
I was singing very well, and she said, "Don't give up your day job, Chris." And then that was it for me. She ruined it for me.
Thanks.
I lost time because of her.
That's horrible. That's horrible. We need to have a conversation with this girl.
Yeah. It's you gotta encourage each other. How would you like it if I went up to Brittany or went up to Taylor Swift and said, you know what, you can't sing worth crap.
Right.
You want a singer? My dog does it better.
Well,
Like,
it's no different than if somebody likes to paint and they finish their, the painting that they've been working on, and they're trying to do this beautiful landscape, and they bring it into the house once it's finished, and somebody looks at it and they laugh like, "You got to be kidding me! Throw that away! Don't hide that! I don't want it out anywhere where people are going to see it." That would be devastating. I mean, you dedicate so much of yourself to your art. That's why I said even if nobody liked it, I'd still keep doing it.
not yet, because I know that I saw a lot of the work that Picasso did in early days, and it was sort of like, if I didn't know it was from Picasso, I probably would have said the same thing. But realizing that now, Picasso, Da Vinci, Rodin, They all got better over time, right?
Right. It's kind of like David Grohl said, you're going to suck in the beginning and accept it. Just be willing to accept it. Look, maybe the early stuff you're not going to share with people, and you don't have to. you just use it as a stepping stone to climb to higher, to a higher level of performance and capabilities. So, knowing that, all right, I'm going to suck for a while, suck it up, buttercup, and learn your craft and get better at it.
David Grohl?
Yeah, David Grohl from the Foo Fighters said that. He
Yeah,
said,
were you a big Nirvana fan?
no, I mean, to be honest, of the entire grunge band collective, Alice in Chains and Soundgarden were probably my favorites. I really loved Chris Cornell. I thought he had a monster voice, an incredible voice. And same with Lane Staley. It's such a shame that Lane couldn't get off heroin because, I mean, God, he was a talented guy. But, at the same time, like I was working on music through the whole of the 90s with Strychnine, and we were doing more of an 80s sound. And so when that, style of music became really popular, it wrecked us because we were probably well on our way to making it, or at least making it further than we did. And that derailed anybody who had kind of an 80s sound. So we had to alter what we were doing a little bit because of it.
So besides the collaborative effort you have with your group Rain of Fire, what do you do when there's there's a road where you just suddenly you can't agree on something? How do you deal with that?
We've been really fortunate because I think as a band we have a really good unified vision, and we've also, from the start, it was relatively spoken, but not just a hard and fast rule. It was understood that we were going to let each guy do his part, however he felt he wanted to do his part. So if the drummer, or if Rob, or if I, or if Jim, we do something that doesn't work well, we'll talk about it a little bit. But if the person who did that part is glued to it, if they really feel hard and fast, this is what I want, then we're probably going to let it stand. So we haven't really run into any roadblocks in terms of differences of opinion on what we're doing. I think that may be one of the advantages to doing it the way we're doing it, because we're not in the same room, which makes it hard to say, all right, let's try this, let's try that. You really can't try. You have to wait and listen to what the other guy did. And, but Rob is really good because he's probably the most schooled musician in the band with hearing things that don't really jive and pointing them out that maybe the rest of us didn't hear. So he's probably got the best ears in terms of accuracy of melody. And Pete's got incredible ears when it comes to mixing and mastering. And since I do all the vocal work, I feel pretty comfortable with vocal melody and writing vocal melodies that work with what Rob's writing. So fortunately, all of us we've been doing this long enough that, we're pretty good at what we're doing. But also we don't step on each other's toes. No, there's no real ego. Because we're not doing this for a label deal. We're not doing this to be wealthy or famous. We're doing it for fun. That helps. So it kind of puts the egos outside the door.
Yeah. So I hear that you got an album being released soon. Tell us more about that.
We're hoping to have it completed mid-year to near the end of the year next year. The new single, Call of Vikings, should be out by the end of November. We've got another 3 songs that'll be completed over the course of hopefully this next year. So I'm guessing, based on our usual timelines, we should have the album completed around this time next year. We haven't given it a name yet, and it's, like I said, it's based on the concept of a soldier who's been wounded in the very first song, Rain of Fire. He's bordering between, consciousness, unconsciousness, insanity, and death, and he's experiencing past lives with each song, and in a number of those songs he's dying. We're not telling what the ending of the album is going to be until the last song. So you don't know if he's going to go insane, if he's going to recover, or if he's going to die. So we'll complete the story with the last song and then put it in album form.
Desert Caravan has 708 views, and I noticed it all has to do with camels and in the desert. I wonder if maybe a lot of those that's sort of like a biblical song, because it looks like, the camels always bring up and dredge up this, the Bible and camels in the old days in the Old Testament. I'm
glad that you tapped into
that song? What is it about that song?
Well, it's multifaceted. One is it probably is our best song. It's probably the song that people relate to most. It's also been the most marketed one. I didn't really start doing anything on social media until about 3 months ago when the song was released. We'd already had the other 4 songs out. They'd been, on YouTube for a while. I also have my own Joe Booe channel. And for a while, before I set up the Rain of Fire channel, we were doing all of the YouTube, all of the video promotion through my channel. So like Rain of Fire has got 1,600 views on my channel. Voices has over 1,000, has 1,100 views on my channel. Hangman has 900 views on my channel. So my channel, based on the time they were released, Rain of Fire has the most. Desert Caravan's right behind it, then Voices, then Hangman, and then Road to Madness. But we didn't start promoting the YouTube channel until the last 3 months.
Is that Joe Booe and the Dog Music YouTube channel?
No, that's another band that I've got. That's my band down in Key West. It's just Joe Booe. So I've got the Joe Booe channel, and that has all the body of stuff that I've ever done. So I've got about 90 videos on that channel with each band that I've.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, okay.
That's part of the reason. But yeah, there is some religious connotation to Desert Caravan. Like I said, that's a song where our protagonist is in the desert, and it's another life and death experience, and he's recognizing the eternity of his soul, that he is the burning flame. He's the eternal flame. And so in the lyrics, when you listen to the lyrics, it relates that to the heat of the desert. And he realizes that the heat of the desert isn't the desert. It's actually the fire within him and the recognition in his eternal soul. And that's part of the parallel that we're trying to draw with the concept, is that he's going through these life and death experiences, these past life experiences, but he's eternal, like all of us. So, in the acceptance of that, death is just a transition. So even if in the end of the album he dies, he's still eternal. And so that was kind of the parallels that we wanted to draw, was that he could be losing his mind, he could be losing his life, but no matter what, he's never going anywhere. He's here for forever.
We're talking about the afterlife and religious. What are your thoughts on God?
Well, I'm a Christian. The other guys in the band are all Christian. We've all been raised Christian. I went to Catholic grade school, Catholic high school. My girlfriend and I are both very deeply Christian. So for years, a lot of people would even ask me like, hey, are you guys a Christian band? We're not, but because the lyrical content is kind of my area of expertise, I do all of the lyric writing for every band I've ever been in. There's some connection to that. So I'm always going to have some relation to my faith and to God in most of the lyrical content.
I'm a Christian too. I've been a believer in Christ for 30 some odd years. And when I was first, when you connected with me as a Rain of Fire, I'm thinking first, now you're saying you're a Christian. So that's sort of like you're Christian, but you're calling your band Hellfire, sort of. I was thinking
Well, actually, the whole Rain of Fire correlation had to do more with the idea that dragons and war kind of were parallels. So the historical fear of a dragon and the contemporary fear of warfare, and that raining down of fire from what man can do and what even nature could do, and the idea of mysticism of the mythology of dragons. It's
wow.
that constant fear of either the wrath of God or the wrath of man, the wrath of the world, and so that's really where it came from more than anything else.
I'm happy that you're a Christian too. It makes me feel a lot better now. I'm still going to promote you though. It's not like, oh, he's a Christian. Good. Okay, release the stuff. Release the stuff to the Christian world. Can Joel Osteen listen to it? Joel Osteen?
I'd love to see Joel Osteen jam into some Rain of Fire. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. But that's great. I'm so happy. Okay, everyone. So we're going to be linking all Joe Booe's music and Rain of Fire down below next to his other songs. Awesome. And hopefully that we can connect later. We're going to end the stream. We really appreciate you being on as our guest.
Thank you so much, Chris. I'll come back and talk to you when the album is done too.
Yeah, please. And we can promote that one too.
Got it. That'd be awesome.
Thanks, man. Okay, everyone. Joe Booe from Rain of Fire.
Woo!
Woo! You ready?
Thanks, Chris.
1, 2, 3.